All right, it's my turn. Again, everyone has to be what I'm going to talk about here of mistakes being used Latinos, including the culture behind urbanism for not only Latin Americans, but immigrants and people who come from all over the world. Um, I won't talk much about myself, but I'm also from Peru. I came in 1999 when I was 18, and I left college. When I moved here, being 18 years old. Growing up in Peru, I walked since took the bus since I was 11 and going to places on my own. And one of my biggest culture shock when I moved to the States is that I had to drive to walk. That's the concept that I was saying in here, my experience in Peru. So just talk a little bit more what Fernando mentioned, his presentation about integrated urbanism in the United States. So keep in mind that for us, cities basically grows organically. It's not like we, the people, adapt to the policies. Actually, the policies adapt to people based on the demands, based on what we need at that moment. Workability is a huge thing, as Fernando stated. Still talking about BRTs, which is something needed. And yes, there's corruption, there's so many things happening in Latin America. However, they push it through. The street is, so that's what we don't have at home. We have it on the streets. We don't have a lot there. There's a park, we call it. We don't have a big store. We have grocery stores. So those things are of nature. It's like if we look at the opportunity of doing something that's like in the neighborhood, we'll expect the city to do something, we should do it. And then we ask for forgiveness, and then we get the purpose we did. So again, the definition of urbanism, or urbanism in general, will happen in Latin America. Well, at least what I grew up. It's just part of our life. And my goal is to bring that concept of creating this type of development with the culture. And honestly, by the end of the presentation, I hope they can see us as partners, not building something for us, but really using us to bring that demand needed to develop this new urbanistic concept. I just want to refer to plazas in a way that if in some neighborhoods they don't have plazas, people made it themselves. What I'm trying to say is that in some neighborhoods, a park becomes the plaza just because it's a way to go through. People gather there. They don't have nothing close by to buy. For kids, they're carrying ice cream, and all of a sudden, boom, there's a store in the garage. And all of a sudden, there's no place to do something. The place is not very well. There's a park, there's a street. I'm talking about 20 years ago. I'm sure there's more people now. It's really difficult for that. But we improvise as needed. But it's very flexible. You need to bring a neighborhood together. The street become just a stage for people. People go to the park just to dance, or people gather in quarters just to be friends. And then all of a sudden there's stores, there are different activities happening about that specific area. And what I want to mention, bring Houston as an example. I lived there for 25 years, and I was a community planner there. And yes, Houston doesn't have zoning, which there's some flexibility of things that could happen. With that said, there's a strong ordinance that we would like to see how it should grow and develop. But because of zoning, of the lack of zoning, from my point of view, that is why Houston has become the most diverse city in the country. Not only that, is people live among each other. You don't see, there's some area where you see the African or Black American community, the Latino community, but overall, diversity is everywhere, especially in Paston. So it's a huge thing. Now that I live in North Texas, I appreciate that diversity that we have because there's more an understanding of people needs in Houston for things to go through. So we have a community where we have a very diverse group, but we ask, what would you like to see in Houston? So what they mention is, they would like to see smaller lots. They would like to have more ADUs, which is given by right, a bigger ADUs. They would like to have more units in a multi-family complex. So now in Houston, the smaller lots give you 12,000 square feet. Now we have acres. Now we have different types of development based on what people want. And when we talk to the diversity groups, they want smaller things. It's so expensive nowadays to have a regular house, 5,000 square feet, and a lot and all that. They're okay, they're so comfortable having everything just closer, courtyards. People from Europe, from Latin America, Asian Africa, they brought that idea. And now we can do courtyards in Houston. It's not as complicated. We have a legal place ordinance that allows local things. So, why culture and the urbanism is and I'm all talk about a case in Houston that you may have seen in cities and other parts of the United States, where there's a lot of Hispanic Latino community. But during COVID, there was an area full of apartment complexes where most of the people were from Latin America, Africa, and the Middle East. And this is a low-income area where they don't have a job, they don't have the income they needed to go to places. So one thing they did, they started bringing the food on the street. They noticed that there's no money for restaurants, and restaurants are closed, but they wanted to somehow mix travel with one another. So what they did, they started selling orange juices, they started selling cookies, and all of a sudden, boom, they have those kiosks with tables, and people are selling pupusas, and ceviches, and Mexican food, and most of the food are from America. But and then it's just one for me a beautiful experience, seeing how resilient community can be without assistance of the city. Now, at the time, that was probably right after or during the pandemic, and after the pandemic was on, they did good. Back then, I don't know how things are going right now because of everything is happening, but it's still there. Okay, well, there you go. So, but anyway, so couple of things that come into consideration. Next to that area is a flea market. And that was the last, that was where people went and interact. And all of a sudden, they run out of space, so they start, saw the opportunity of selling food outside. So the people become just, it was an area for them to interact. So between the plaza, the apartment complex, and the kiosk of food, and that was a 5-minute neighborhood. Everything was in that area. And it just became like a happy activity, a festival that happens every weekend in that specific area. So, and this is the part that I want to emphasize a little more. And how do you interact with the community? And you might disagree with me, but through my years of experience dealing with diverse communities, I realized there's, for example, two types of Latinos. And you can base that comfort also with the Asian community and African community of diverse groups. But me being Latino, I think I identify as Latino as the whole concept of Latino being here. So the one group of Latinos are the ones who are born here or raised here, and the ones that have the idea or have the culture of Latino in the United States, which is not saying that's wrong. It's how it is. We went through a lot, and then being together and creating this culture, supporting each other is also a way to move forward in this country. But then there's Latino like me that came from, as a 13-year-old or adult, and I see myself as Latino, not because where I was born, but the language I speak. I'm a speak Spanish, but it comes from Latin. And in Latin America, Latinos aren't only people from Latin America, but also people from Europe, such as people from Spain, France, Italian, even Africa. There are Latin Africans. There's people also Portuguese, French, there's one country that speaks Spanish, and Romania, of course, So you have to keep in mind when you want to approach that community, that's not specifically Latino community, you have to understand what identify who is who. There's a group of Latinos who are born, raised here, and proud to be Latinos, which is great. But at the same time, they have another group of Latinos. When you want to create a community meeting, or you have to create a community meeting, you have to know who your audience is. If you do everything next to them, which is nothing wrong with that, but I personally, I don't identify with that culture, so most likely I will not participate. And then when you go and talk to people, for example, the Asian community, you have to understand that not everybody like to work together. There's so much history, wars, and politics involved that sometimes the Chinese community wants to have their own group. The Vietnamese community wants to have their own group and have meetings separately. So it's very important to acknowledge the things. Now, to make that happen, there's a couple of things that we need to consider. And that's something that I put together. Basically, there are 3 rules to connect with a community. Especially if you don't really understand their culture or you don't really interact with them on a daily basis. So one is that at the beginning, you have to adapt, you have to adjust to their culture, you have to understand why they came here, all the traumas that went through to come to the United States. Not only illegal people, but also like myself, I came with a green card and it was a culture shock and a process to be part of a society. So sometimes if you are meeting for, let's say, the Peruvian community, which you have a huge one in New Jersey. What's the name of that? Patterson University. So you just schedule a meeting at 4 p.m. Expect them to arrive at 5:30. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're gonna bring food, I mean, you can go to Kroger's to buy some cookies and stuff like that. But if you bring the food that they like, or to go to a store or a restaurant in their community that's very popular for them, then that's a nice option to do. Being comfortable is you need to have lots of conversations. You need to try their food. You need to be part of their meetings. If you want to feel trusted in the community, you need to show up. That whole concept of, oh, how can I feel trust if I don't look like that? That's yes. I don't look like that, and you have to work really hard to build trust with the community. Once I speak Spanish and they hear my Peruvian accent, they push me away. And especially if I tell them that I work for the city, even worse. So I have to be there. I have to partner with the stakeholders. I have to partner with people who they have trust in the community and try to come up with the strategies for them to come to my meetings or for me to be in their meetings. Quick example, it took me a while to build this operating partnership with an organization that provides after-school programs for refugees. So I was able to be part of a meeting with the mothers of the state. They're Muslims, so I was as a man, I cannot meet them. So I have to adjust, I have to finish the body, and I have to make sure that they go and get the information we need to make this plan. So it is difficult because I cannot be there, but I have to adjust and adapt to the circumstances. And then the last part is politics. When you partner with these entities that can bring that community to your meetings or vice versa, you asking for help. But you have to understand that when so eventually in the future, they're going to ask for help back. So you cannot ask for something and not giving anything in return. That's how it works. That's a comfortable thing. You need to, and sometimes at least working for the city will be a challenge because my boss or other people won't have that mentality of needing, I'm the city, they have to provide us nice assistance. It's like I need to provide assistance to them because they're helping me as well. And with all of this, I'm not talking about local government, but politics within the HOAs, the politics within those non-profit organizations, politics between the communities. For example, again, the Vietnamese, the Chinese community, that's all politics. And you just need to accept how it is. We're not in a place to judge or try to understand. You should accept how things are and just continue with the work. So what I'm asking you to do is to be part of the community, is to see us as partners. Andres said it couple sessions before that even in the most ghetto area full of Latinos, there are people who have the money to acquire land with will. However, they like to be in that environment. So don't see us as people that need help. See us as people that can help the community that demand the need to have the concept of new urbanism alive. I mean, again, one example that I'm proud of is Houston. Houston has all we could look like for some reasons, but that's the people want to have that type of development, and we provide that to the community. So let's find ways to work together. Not only with the Latinos, but also with the Asian and African Americans. So one thing that you need to keep in mind is that traumas that the neighborhood has. Things that happened in probably 60 years ago, and it's still alive today in some people's memories. Two examples, now I'm in North Texas, and when I tried to build trust in the community, they mentioned something that happened 60 years ago. They weren't alive. So that's how the city, their ordinances to be Latinos outside the city. But that happened to their parents. However, that information or trauma travels through generations. So to build trust, you need to heal the community somehow. You cannot change, build a concept of urbanism without creating projects to improve the quality of life. That can be better parks, more amenities. In some neighborhoods, the issue was human trafficking. So you have to adapt to have to make solutions for those issues before bringing the concept of urbanism, proposing changes to the development of the area. And that's one way to build trust. So I hope that with what we're providing, the information we're providing today, you really take a step forward and as I also as a community, just find a way to be part of that community. And I want to finish with learn about your own culture, the American culture. With all respect, it's very individualistic, and sometimes it's not very welcoming. So what I'm trying to say is to learn about your own culture to be able to see the cultures of everyone else. Right. Okay.